All right, everybody. Hello, welcome. This is the Arthur of Gaming, and we are doing a 10-question interview, Dungeons and Dragons style. And my esteemed guest is Chris from AxenShield. Chris, hey there, man. How are you?
Good, good. How are you? Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Yeah, definitely. Why don't you let everybody know where they can find you and tell us a little bit about what AxenShield is?
Well, first off, as far as finding Accent Shield, you pretty much type in Accent Shield anywhere on the web, and you're pretty much going to find us. We've been fortunate enough to have a bit of a unique name in that regard, but we are, of course, on Twitter as Accent Shield. We're on Facebook as Accent Shield. I don't do as much there. I've got a personal one that's CJ at Accent Shield on Facebook as well. Then we are on Instagram as Accent Shield. Um, we do sales outlet via Etsy store. As well as our website is accentshield.com, and Etsy store is just Accent Shield at Etsy. So like I said, you pretty much just type in the name and it should pull you up everywhere
Yeah.
in that regard. Accent Shield, what do? We make little plastic stuff for our games, trying to keep everybody as fun as they can involved. Our whole goal with the company is um, being able to bring a deeper level of immersion at the table. And we do that specifically by elevating your game, whether it be through miniatures or through the terrain or through the monsters, whether it be for the players, if they have flight or spider climb or any of those kind of capabilities, or it is through the DM who wants to have small flying creatures to massive swarms of spiders on the cavern ceiling and whatnot. Let's see, we do tracking for initiative tracking, spell tracking, and then we do area of effect for spells and various things like that. And so that's kind of what we've been doing now for a couple of years. Hopefully, we get through the crisis that we're in, and we'll be able to start adding a lot more products in. We've been developing a number of new items. We've got for the release of Eberron, we came out with a new Sky Coach that you can have. Of course, it's all of what we do is designed to be what I would consider a little bit more on the minimalist side. So the idea wasn't the invasiveness of a really amazing ship-looking model. It was more of the functionality of being able to maneuver the minis around while in flight and give that concept that flying item or creature or person was literally flying with invisibility. Hence why all of our product is clear for the most part. So DM boards, whiteboards, player scratch boards, whiteboards. We're coming out with those puzzles, 3D puzzles for the DMs to be able to incorporate instead of just, if you will, okay, give me a check for a lockpick on this trap. You now have to solve a puzzle. It can be a 30-second simple puzzle where you have to arrange the pieces, things like that. Tracking monsters and tokens when you have minis down. Sometimes it's hard to keep track of which mini or monster is what number in the order. We've developed just small little tokens with numbers on them to lay down next to each mini so that you can kind of keep track of their battle point. Different things like that. So that's pretty much what we've done so far.
Yeah, and I can say if anybody goes to my Instagram at the Arthur of Gaming, they'll see all the time. A lot of my posts have got your flying bases and stuff in them, and
we appreciate that.
And I love them. They're amazing. They are the greatest. And my terrain builds have a lot of your risers in them too. So like the people go and see stuff. If you're looking to see exactly what these look like and how they work, check out my Instagram too. There's a lot of builds
great
that have
pics in there. Yeah, that
have
great builds
stuff in them. Okay, so let's get into some questions here. You ready?
I don't know. Maybe I am.
10 questions about Dungeons and Dragons. Let's see. What is your process when naming a character? Do you do research? Is it just an epiphany? Like how does it work for you?
So for me, naming a character, it's more process than less process. And there's more research than less research for me. Um, when I'm naming either a player or a character that I'm going to play, which I don't get to play very much because I'm always doing the DMing side of it. When I do, and I think I have about literally only about 6 characters that I've ever created. But those characters have a tremendous amount of depth. I may not really know all of its story, but I have really given it a persona, and the name is tied very much to that persona. Whether it be my undead cleric or what Unearthed Arcana put out there was the grave cleric. His name is Marty, and it's a simple name and a simple person who had a simple tragic event to his life, falling down some stairs and dying. Or it is in our Kickstarter, we released the knowledge about my premier character, which his name is Anslo Brightwater Ragston Zerini Jr. III. And he's a bit of an older man, but you could call me Rags. And that's the Rags Mini that we had John Popson over at Effin' Cool Minis sculpt and develop for us. Modeled after Matt Mercer's hair. And so we made sure that was part of it. We thought that was critical. But so I do more research in trying to develop the name and connect it into the character in that regard. But at the same time, I always tend to have a little bit of fun in the character. My characters always have a more lighthearted side to them. So the name usually has a correlation in that regard. But I do try to do research, try to line it up with the background and concept and feel to the character.
Nice. Very good. What is your most memorable critical success?
In a game?
Yeah, in a game. Either as a DM or as a player.
Oh boy. Wow, that's a really good question. My most memorable critical success. Okay. Wow, that's a hard question.
It is a hard question.
That easy.
No,
I thought you're supposed to ask easy questions.
No softballs here. No softballs. I'm pitching them in hot. I'm throwing in the heaters.
Yeah, 90 mile an hour right there. So I think as a DM, probably it may not necessarily be one specific instance, but as a DM, it's the general, when my players leave the table talking about what the night just was. That for me is the biggest memorable part. It doesn't always happen. I mean, I there's probably less nights that happens than more, sadly. I'm not a very good DM, but there have been a number of times where they've walked away and they've spent another hour talking about how the night went and what went on. And man, I can't believe that happened and this happened. Truthfully, for me, that's really the best part. Because it doesn't matter whether it was a particular, honestly, the design, the layout, they can be so varied. The use of such incredible options out there nowadays with all the different terrain makers, and from complex and expensive to simple. One of your players, Dan Masucci, Inked Mage, does a fantastic job at incorporating the very effective and affordable stuff into his builds. So, your build can be vastly wild, but the way the players come away from it, that experience at the table, to me, that is a paramount item. And by the way, one of the reasons why I really like Vorpal Board, no intended slam to any other virtual tabletop or online tabletop system. And, thank goodness for all of them. They're there to help. But to me, what really caught my eye on Vorpal Board was the fact that the DM gets to incorporate the terrain in what's going on at the table. So it was, truthfully, our game D&D is supposed to bring people to the table. Then we have a national crisis like Pandemic City here, and we can't get to the table. We can't get people there. Vorpal Board blew my mind in the fact that it allowed you to feel like you were almost at the table, better than anything else. So I like that element where when you walk away, there's just that success feel of everybody had a great time. It happened. It was a real experience at that moment.
Yeah.
From a player standpoint, I don't think I really probably don't have one that I'm with my character Rags. There was I was fortunate enough to have Dan Fisher over at Hammered Game Tables, and I are good friends. And not this Gary Con because it was canceled, but last year we did a one-on-one session to develop my character Rags. He had some interesting points in his background, but he didn't have anything flushed out. And Dan and I sat down and spent about 2 hours playing one-on-one D&D. He was several NPCs interacting with the character Rags, and it was there that Rags literally came to life, and sentences that I had written down about him that were not even complete thoughts. They weren't complete details. They were maybe a tick in the box of a momentary action that he didn't even know about, which was great. Flushed out and came to life. And that character became very, very real. And that was the first time I've ever had the opportunity to have that really happen. And that was probably the most memorable for me, and endeared my heart to a character more than I've ever seen happen for me before. So that was a long story. Sorry about that.
No, that's great. That's perfect. What is your most memorable failure?
Most memorable failure was the gigantic, and I've seen this throughout, Twitterdom and whatnot, the the gigantic amount and massive effort that I put in for the session, and the players literally didn't do anything that had anything to do with it, and yet they were just having a great time goofing around, but it was frustrating me to no end, and I kind of let it come through, and I got annoyed with the players, and I had to apologize later, and it's like, I'm sorry, but that you guys just you shanked the living daylights out of 5 hours of my preparation, and that was really my biggest failure, because I felt like I'd kind of spent way too much time focusing on me and what I want, thinking it's what they wanted, instead of just focusing on, let's just present the opportunities and interact with the players the way we should, so they have fun. Yeah. So that was kind of my big failure point.
You know what? I think that's a common answer I get from you're my third interview now, I think, and everybody's also either mostly DM or partially DM, and almost every time in that question, it's about how we as DMs have failed our players. It's how that gets answered almost every time.
Yeah, I don't think I mean, from a playing a player, a PC, I don't feel like I've had a memorable failure, because even great critical fails or fumbles or any of those kinds of things, at least for me, they haven't caused anybody to die yet, so I haven't felt that terrible. They've been turned into a fun moment, so it's really more the DM side that hurts. So
exactly. Yep. So speaking of death, here we go. Question note number 4. What is your most memorable character death?
So the other night, my Thursday night campaign, it's called the Quest for Time, and it's the story of Rags, and it's my PC that I developed, and so it's all the events of what of his world and his life that he is trying to solve. So that game, that campaign, the way I run it, other than my homebrew and homebrew side of it, I'll utilize modules. Like right now, we're playing in Storm King's Thunder, and that just becomes basically that entire module becomes just one small storyline inside my entire campaign. And a lot of my players are family. I've got a couple of sons, a daughter, and a wife at the table, along with some others and stuff. And my 15-year-old daughter is playing a monk who she plays real well. She loves her. And the other night I killed her.
Oh no!
And that was the worst. Yeah, you don't kill your daughter's character. She's just in absolute love with this character, and she plays her so well, and it really suits her and it fits her, and I killed it. And so that was really bad. I had to do some fancy footwork. We backtracked a little bit, so she didn't ultimately die. I couldn't do it. I just couldn't do it. I had to make sure that it was reversed. Terrible DM moment.
So I'm gleaming from that question, which one of your kids is your least favorite? Didn't say you killed either one of your son's characters, but the daughter, she's right out of there.
Well, no, the older son, his character's a barbarian, and he's real beefy, and he's hard to kill.
Yeah.
And then the other one, he plays a warlock that is hilarious, Fred the Annihilator. And he is trigger happy with Eldritch Blast.
Oh, yeah.
Has
Every
no
warlock.
regard for everything in it. And it's like, I don't kill him because he cracks me up all the time. So anyway.
All right. So question number 5, and I think we've kind of got this answer already, but what is your favorite character of all time?
Yeah. So for my personal character, it is Ansel Brightwater Ragson Zerini Jr. the Third, and he's. I think because there's more of me in him than in any other character. Yeah. It's probably that part of me that I am afraid to let the world see, that I allow to come out in the character.
Yeah.
And so he's my favorite by far, because he's just cool.
So what race
and he's been immortalized in a mini.
Right, which is awesome.
What's crazy to me.
Yeah. What race and class is he?
Well, so that's a really hard thing to describe. And the reason, and I'll do it as fast as I can, I understand. He's human, and he grew up in Waterdeep, and he grew up in a good home, and his father wanted him to be wanted to understand sword play and be masterful with a sword, and come into preferably the Lord's Alliance, which his father's a member of the Lord's Alliance and in the Guard and whatnot. But his mother was a kind of a little bit of a tinkerer with regards to alchemy, and an herbalist. And so Rags did what Dad said to do and learned the sword play, but didn't care about it, really liked his books. And so he started out moving down the path of generic wizard, basically magic user, but really was an alchemist. But what I never really liked, and hopefully this is okay to say, I felt like the alchemist from the Wizards of the Coast class is a oh boy, you caught me. Edit this part of the video, right?
Not a good representation of what you wanted to play.
not a good representation of what alchemists should be in
Right.
any way, shape, or form. It was really lame that an alchemist turned into nothing but a guy who put spells in a stoppered bottle and threw them.
Right.
That didn't make sense to me. So he basically, I developed kind of my own homebrew element of alchemist, but what I found out that he really was, which I did not understand this, but when we fleshed out the character in and some of the 5e newer 5e players will probably never heard of this. You have to go back to AD&D to get a hold of this and understand it. Ultimately, what he is, he's a chronomancer.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not sure if you're super familiar with that.
Yeah.
It is not a playable class in 5e at all right now. But basically, he went on. He had a huge quest for power. Was the ultimate situation. He was trying to find and develop an alchemical admixture as a fountain of youth. That's what he was trying to do. But in that hunger for power, in that greed, somebody messed with him. One component he needed was a sliver of skin from a young red dragon, a very, very young, just a wormling, a baby. But somebody evil delivered him an ancient red dragon skin, which Rags did not realize. When he put the mixture together, there was an explosion. He tore open the sky, basically tore the sky into another plane, into another realm. As a result, in that mixture splashing on him and everything that went on, he's now able to maneuver across the time streams to be able to, and what his quest now is, the realization that he's got to close that crack in the sky, that he has got to fix what he did, because Tiamat's trying to come back now. The giants are trying to take over now. The lords of Avernus are trying to rise now. So he's caused everything.
Everything.
And now he's trying to go around fixing it. And so nothing that I do is simple. Just sorry about the answers. But
no, that's okay.
So ultimately, he is a chronomancer. And that is what human chronomancer is, what he ultimately is. So
nice. Good. All right. What is your regular? So we've heard a little bit here. You've told us a little bit. So what's your regular gaming group like? Like, what are the players? So you said you have your daughter, your wife, your two sons.
Yep. So I've got. So I'll start around the table. I've got my wife, who's just incredible and amazing. Without her, nothing would be, and I wouldn't even be in existence, I think, because she's just so incredible. But she plays a Drow Ranger. And Drow is her favorite class. She absolutely loves the Drow and the whole concept of it. So she plays a Drow Ranger, but she's a Drow Ranger with mommy issues. So she's not welcome in Mensa Berenson because she was a rebel and didn't do what mom said she was supposed to do, and so she left years ago because she just didn't believe what mom had to say. And she's been traveling the world, and she's finding out she likes the world. And so she likes mani-pedis, but she doesn't want anybody to know because she's a Drow. She likes, real nice shoes, but she doesn't want anybody to know because she's a Drow. So she hides these things. But she plays that. Let's see. My daughter, she plays a monk, and I can't remember which way she took, but pretty much a straight up monk. She does a great job with it.
Well, up until you killed her, that is.
Well, we try not to bring that up too much, but thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
I think she's 15. Then my 17-year-old son plays human warlock again, Fred the Annihilator.
Right.
Somewhat of a humorous guy. Last week, in his attempt to decipher if the liquid was acid or not, he used a goblin leg that he had tore off of a goblin to dip in the. Does it rot? Does it? Yeah, it's acid. Okay, so that kind of a sense of humor. Human barbarian pirate is the older son. He's 23 or so. Yeah, 23, and then human pirate, and then good friend of the family. We've known friends with the oldest son. His name is Jonathan. He'll always be at the shows. He works with us at AxenShield, and he's one of the core members of making everything happen there. He plays a human healer, but he is a something that he and I are developing together, a runic warrior healer. So he's not just a cleric, he's got runes all over his body, and the runes are if you will they are his magic. It is not connected, at least that he knows of yet. I have plans there. It's not connected to a god that he worships or a pantheon at all. It is just since birth he's had these runes on him, and more runes have added on, and some have gone away. But when he casts his magic, the certain runes will actually begin to illuminate and glow, and so we're trying to come up with the concept of a runic healer that is not just traditional in the sense of going to a god or pantheon or a class of a cleric.
Right.
So those are the players that I have right now.
Good.
That we meet with every Thursday night, and that's our quest for time.
Well, yeah, and so that's kind of where this question is going. Is you and I are both older D&D players. I've been playing since basic set way back in the 80s. If your experience was like mine was when I was a kid, it was all just a bunch of white dudes sitting around a table playing Dungeons and Dragons.
Sure.
And I think, especially with the introduction of 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons specifically, I feel like that has opened up. And maybe it could be some of like Joe Manganiello who's advertising it, and people are like, oh, hey, important celebrity people are playing. Maybe it's this something cool to try. I'm not sure what it is, but I'm seeing more of an influx of females and
absolutely
non-white people playing, which is awesome.
Sure.
And the diversity is where it really gets to be a lot of fun.
Absolutely, yeah.
So going into that question, that goes into my next question of what is the most diverse gaming group you've ever played with, as far as players being not your typical white straight males?
I've not. I don't know if it's just maybe just our local game stores or whatnot, but we haven't had a tremendous amount of diversity in that regard. Not because of any exclusionary element, just because there weren't hardly anybody around. So I think probably the most diverse is really what I play with now.
Right.
A husband and wife, in kids, girls and boys.
Right.
But I've had a couple of groups that were high school students mixed in with adults. Had some groups that were guys and gals, but I haven't had that opportunity yet to play any more diverse than that. Like I said, not for any other reason other than like at our FLGS, there's not. I wouldn't even say. I mean, I don't think there's a tremendous amount. When I've been in there, there isn't even a tremendous amount of diversity there.
Yeah,
just people physically present. So
right. Same
again
here.
For anything other than that,
Yeah, same here. I mean, I live in an area of upstate New York where it's mostly white people. So when you go to when you go to like the gaming store, it's mostly white dudes around. You occasionally get a
Right.
woman around. So it's pretty
Yeah.
awesome. I mean, you have a couple, you have your wife and your daughter playing, which is pretty
Yeah.
great. Which at least
Yeah.
mixes it up a little bit. And I feel anyway, you see a very different gaming experience when you play
Oh yeah.
with not your straight white dudes. Like you find a
Sure.
very different, and I love that gaming experience.
Sure.
It really,
Yeah.
you know. All right,
Yeah.
question.
I
Oh yeah,
think
go ahead.
that's very, very true. I mean, um, I think that's a reality. And it's I I feel like, truthfully, what I've seen just in life general. I'm 52 now, and so been around a little bit. Um, you know, the diversity in that whole discussion of diversity um, is really more about the person and what they and who they are.
Yeah.
So, you know, you've got okay, so here's one, and I don't know, just from that mixed concept, right? So there's got to play in your game the other
Mm-hmm.
day with River Break, which was
Yep.
incredibly fun, awesome,
Thanks.
and had a blast. And anytime you want to bring me back,
We
anyway.
will. We will for sure.
And some of your players asked if I'd play all the time. Just wanted to throw that out there. And I know you don't have the room for it, but if you ever do,
Yeah, yeah.
but you've got me, uh, straight white guy that goes to church every weekend. But then you've got Dan Masucci, straight white guy covered in tattoos,
Right.
goes to church. So there's a diversity, but that's because of what he brings and who he is.
Right.
Then you've got Ember Moon, right? And never mind her personality, which is just crazy, right? Which is so awesome. I loved her.
Yeah.
But you got black chick there, and
From
then you've
from
got
Texas, yeah, black
yeah,
woman
from
from
Texas.
Texas,
I
yeah.
mean, yeah, just look at her cross-eyed, you're going to kick your rear end. And so, you know, there's just a natural, and I feel like it's more about what the person is and who they are and what they bring.
Yeah.
And if there's an element of racism, that's coming out of that person, I believe. That's what I've seen in all my years.
Yeah.
If there's an exclusivity, it's coming out of that person. Because you can have straight white guys who are inclusive and straight white guys who are exclusive. You can have black females who are inclusive and black females that are exclusive.
Right.
I just see that all over the place. And I feel like so often people just want to throw down a race card, or they want to throw down, whether you are perceived to have money or you're perceived to not have money or whatever. And it's really, to me, when you start peeling the layers of the onion back, it's the person inside that's bringing that. And because, I've got friends of all kinds of nationalities, and have a great time with them. And I try to learn those people to see where they are or where they are not sensitive in certain areas, and I had a guy that I was a friend with, and he was from India. And man, I used to pick on him all the time, but he loved it and he got along with that. And so, anyway,
Yeah.
But
so, what is the largest group of people you'd ever play D&D with?
oh, dude, I hated it. I had for a while, I had a group of 12. I was
Ouch.
DMing 12 people.
Ouch.
And it was so difficult. And it was hard. And the worst part was that the spectrum was brand spanking new to D&D. Didn't even know how to spell D&D. all the way to the experienced multi-year player. And that group was so hard. It was and there was husbands and wives in there, so there was that mix, where it's like, don't bring that to the table, please. And so and I will tell you that in all fairness, I love D&D, but Castles and Crusades was way faster to play for the larger group.
Yeah.
Its dynamic is so much easier and quicker to be able to role play situations out. And of course, a lot of 5e, truthfully, in my eyes, a lot of 5e is throwback towards what CNC is,
Right.
and as much throwback to AD&D as they could get. So,
Yep.
but yeah, it was 12 people. It was nuts, and I can't say that I enjoyed it. I don't think I did.
Yeah.
It was too much.
Okay, now two easy questions. Here we go. What is your favorite spell and why?
So I think when I got to play in your game the other day in River Break, I was having a tough time knowing where to go, and I made a new character, Mr. Venderson. He's Mr. Venderson. He's a good man. I like him. He's a human warlock, and I'm going to tell you that I enjoyed Eldritch Blast.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Because it's a cantrip.
Yeah.
Right? And so the usability of that to me was good. But outside of that, I'm going to tell you Misty Step is crazy cool. And I really first picked up on Misty Step watching Sam Riegel on Critical Role when he played in season 1. He was Scanlan. And I hadn't really seen Misty Step used per se in functionality. And I saw him use it in some really decisive situations that really flushed out the usability of that. And I liked what it was able to do. And so, and I think I did fly in your game, but Misty Step was loaded up and ready to go. So I think Eldritch Blast and Misty Step are really cool. I haven't had a chance to play higher level spells yet, so I don't really know a lot. I've read some that are probably going to be really, really crazy cool when you get there.
Yeah,
but
sure.
I so far down here at this level, this is what I've been able to play with. I like them.
I think people underestimate Misty Step a lot.
I think they do.
Because they don't realize that if you run into one of those monsters that grabs you, the quickest way for a wizard to get out is just Misty Step.
Done.
I mean, it's the greatest thing ever. I mean, it's
Yeah.
and it's a bonus action. So you can Misty Step, you can move, and you can Eldritch Blast right after it because you can cast two spells in the same turn if one of them's a cantrip. So you can Misty Step, move, bonus, Eldritch Blast. I mean, it has such great usability inside of combat, outside of combat. I mean, I've used it outside of combat before to Misty Step up onto balconies and all sorts of stuff. I mean, it's such a usable spell, and I think people don't really give it the value that they really should. I mean, I think people use it a lot, but I don't think they really appreciate it as much as they could.
Yeah, exactly. I had not. I was struggling with trying to figure out what character to play and for River Break and. The idea watching my son play Fred the Annihilator, Warlock, it caused me to look at that class that I had never looked at before. I truthfully, I'd kind of written Warlock off in my whole mind just because I don't think this was certainly not done necessarily like as a direct purpose, but when you look at the player's handbook, you are very much driven into the mentality of the warlock being subservient to some evil god patron, and you're a puppet. So you throw warlock out really quick, and I don't think they intended that to be the case. I think it's just the way it kind of came across, at least the way I read it and the way I've heard other players tell me that they kind of wrote off the warlock in that regard. But I watched my son play Fred the Annihilator, and I was like, man, I like that. And so I started exploring it for River Break, and when I hit upon the persona of what a warlock for me would be, and I think there's a really big thing. I think if players want to play to a very immersive level where they are really enjoying their play, they need to develop a character that persona to the character is them, and what they are close to. And when I did that, I started looking, and when I figured out the persona, basically this very tall, very lanky, um, Bela Lugosi looking effect for the warlock. And then for me, I gave him this Swedish element, which to me has again that, you know, sort of scary Ravenloft. I get Sweden area and the mountains and the Alps and all of that. And I brought all that together, and then I decided he needed a good name, so I gave him the name of Anderson.
Mm-hmm.
And then I said, no, that's not going to work. He's got to, and so I threw an accent into him. And next thing I had was Vanderson, Mr. Vanderson, you know, and all of a sudden that persona came together, and that is what made the class of warlock all of a sudden become really cool. And in literally just a couple of hours of playing, next to Rags, which will always be the PC for me, Mr. Vanderson has become, oh yeah, I love him. I think about him continually, about his traits and his actions, and can't wait to play him again, and the ideas with him and whatnot. And so I think that Warlock came out to be, to me, which drove me to, for the first time, to realize, to bring it back around, Eldritch Blast and Misty Step, because I hadn't really seen them in action before that. Yeah. And that's when I said, oh, now those are spells to work with. Oh, yeah.
Those are fun.
So,
yeah. All right. So last question on the same vein here. So what is your favorite magic item and why?
Ooh, favorite magic item. Okay. Have this one is not played with it at all, not gotten to use it because it is so powerful, but the Staff of Magi that Raceland Magier had. Mainly because I had never, in 10th grade, my 10th grade English teacher gave us 2 options to read in class to do the book reports in 10th grade English, and it was either Beowulf, anyway, or The Hobbit. And the whole class went, oh, The Hobbit. We don't know what The Hobbit. We want to know about The Hobbit. Because he gave us a synopsis of each book. So we read The Hobbit, which of course was the first time I had ever been exposed to the fantasy realm, if you will. Read The Hobbit, fell in love with it. By the time high school ended, I had been told by a good friend in high school about these books called Dragonlance. They had just come out. They're really cool. And so I grabbed them, and that was the end of it. That was it. It all took off from there. And that began to really just draw me in pure love with the fantasy genre and everything. And by far the greatest artifact I've ever, and I mean, I've got the Book of Artifacts, and I've got, you know, all those books. I mean, I'm basically an AD&D book collector, if you will. Read through them, look at them. There's a lot of really cool things. Gave one of my players a pot, a never-ending pot, that every time he took it out, poured water in it, a nice stew magically appeared. But the Staff of Magi, you can't touch it. That's the most amazing magic item ever to me. So,
and it's funny that you bring up Staff of the Magi and Dragonlance, as a matter of fact. So when back in second edition, when we played, We had a very long running game, 5 or 6 years long.
Nice.
We had 2 characters apiece because we would play on the weekend, and if somebody fell
Okay.
asleep, you just brought a second character in and kept on playing.
Okay. Yeah.
The game
Yeah.
started on Friday night, ended Sunday night, and you just played
Nice.
the entire time. But at one
Oh
point, we
man.
were spell jamming, and we ended up on Kryn, and
Yep.
we ended
Yep.
up in a fight with Takisis. That was the Dragon Queen, right?
Yep. Yep.
And
Yep.
my
Yep.
friend had a wizard named Magus, and he ended up flying up next to Takisis, who was on a dragon, and broke
Yep.
his staff of the Magi over his knee
Oh wow. Okay. There you go.
to take out
Nice.
her dragon and take her down, but he took himself out in
Nice.
the process because the staff, when you broke it, it snapped, all the magic came out, and it was a full staff. It had not ever
Oh
been
yeah.
used, so
Yep.
he got the maximum amount he could possibly do. So it's kind of funny you're
That's
bringing staff of the
amazing.
Magi. It's kind of cool.
Yeah. Yeah. Dragonlance is an amazing thing. I about 3 years ago got to meet Margaret Weiss and Tracy Hickman. They were at GaryCon.
Yep.
And oh man, that was a dream come true. That was
Yeah.
a dream come true, and got to take pictures with them. And they
Nice.
signed my Dragonlance adventure book and hardback right where they're inside the cover. They've got their pre-printed signatures, and I had them signed right next to them, and
Nice.
it was absolutely phenomenal.
Very
So
cool.
bucket list achieved on that one. So
Very nice.
cool stuff. Yeah.
All right,
no
so
doubt.
that's it. That's my 10 questions. We'll
Well,
wrap it up
all right.
here. I wanted to say thank you to Vorpal Board for allowing us to use
Yep.
their amazing software to stream.
It is
Thank you,
great.
Chris at AxenShield. And please, people, really, if you want cool gaming gear for flying characters, for holding up terrain, all
Yes.
that, AxenShield is the bomb. It is the great stuff.
Yeah, please come by. We need help. This pandemic has pretty much put AxenShield on its knees right now.
Yeah.
We are struggling greatly. The sales have dried up because people can't play and they're having a tough time. And of course, our state put a shelter at home order in, and we did our best, or we've been doing our best to kind of follow through with that. I think we are going to probably be changing that with AxenShield here in the coming a few days or next week. Our team has not enjoyed not building product.
Yeah.
And so they've come up with a plan how they can kind of maintain guidelines and do the best safety measures they can, but yet get back to work and start building and shipping. And
Yep.
We think we're gonna kind of maybe turn the faucet back on and so
Good.
try to get things going. But we desperately need shameless plug. We need
Yeah,
order.
absolutely.
So shameless plug.
Well,
anyway.
stick in there, Chris, because we need you guys around the hobby industry. As usual,
Yeah.
everybody, go follow Chris and AxenShield on all of the different places you can follow them.
Yeah.
Find me on Instagram at the Arthur of Gaming. Like this video, subscribe to my YouTube channel, and
Yes.
we'll catch you guys around later. Thank you,
Thank
Chris.
you so much. All right. Thanks. Bye.